Hi, I'm here in a beautiful nature area just north of Stony Plain, Alberta. And what I want to talk about is something very important when it comes to human use of nature areas. And that is ecosystem research. Because as you can see by the trail that I'm on, is that it is very, very well used. And that's okay. I mean, it's great to have people out enjoying and using nature areas. But we have to acknowledge that humans can have a significant impact on nature. And out here, we've got people like me trail running. There's also dog sledding and people skiing. And what happens is that, and it's really hard to see when you're talking about a trail in the wintertime, as you can see behind me, on this trail down in front of me, is there's basically no vegetation left where people use the trail, and it's much more evident, of course, in summertime underneath the snow. But basically, what you have is bare dirt. So when we acknowledge that human beings have an impact on the environment, we kind of have to ask ourselves the question: just how bad is that impact? What is the extent of that impact? And the only thing we can really do is to take really careful measurements and compare them over time to see exactly what that human impact on the ecosystem is. So, as the sun rises here, we're going to talk a little bit more about ecosystem research and exactly how it is done. During ecosystem research, scientists collect measurements about both biotic and abiotic parts of an ecosystem. They do this by measuring a small sample of the actual number of organisms in a particular area. It's pretty hard to count every single organism in an area. Can you imagine trying to count every single blade of grass in a big field? A sample quickly measures a part of an entire ecosystem, which gives scientists the general idea of what is happening in the larger area. In aquatic ecosystems like ponds, rivers, and oceans, scientists measure water quality. A large variety of species, including plants and large fish, can live in high-quality water. There are less numbers of species found in low-quality water. Scientists determine the overall water quality of an ecosystem by measuring several features. They take small samples of water and use special machines to determine how much dissolved oxygen and nutrients are in the water. Lots of oxygen in water is necessary for large fish to survive, and that oxygen also makes for a healthy ecosystem for other organisms. Too many nutrients can actually be a bad thing in an aquatic ecosystem. Certain nutrients cause green algae to grow and eventually take over an aquatic ecosystem. Scientists also look at water samples under a microscope to view and count tiny living microorganisms in the water. Some microorganisms are needed as food by animals in aquatic ecosystems, but other microorganisms can cause disease and be harmful to an ecosystem. How about something like birds? Well, sometimes volunteers can help. A yearly volunteer bird count has happened in North America for over 100 years. One day each December, birdwatchers count the different birds they see and hear in a 24-kilometer circle close to their home. These volunteers don't necessarily count every single bird in the area, but the bird count gives a good idea of the relative numbers of birds in an area. When all the bird counts are collected across North America, these measurements give scientists useful information on how bird populations are increasing or decreasing over time. Sometimes scientists count organisms in a very small area of an ecosystem, such as a 1 meter square. Let's go back to the beginning of this video where we saw an untouched area and a trail that was created by humans. If a scientist were to research how humans impact this ecosystem, he or she would start by marking out a 1 meter square in the untouched area and a 1 meter square that includes the human impacted area. This square is called a quadrat. Next, the scientist would count all the different types of organisms in each square. For example, here she would count the blades of grass, wildflowers, insects, and all the shrubs in each quadrat. The scientist would then record all these numbers, and finally they would analyze this information, comparing the two quadrats carefully. You can see from these sample numbers that the undisturbed land contains a greater variety and number of species compared to the human disturbed land. Ecosystem research really helps scientists understand how ecosystems change over time, which also helps people make good decisions about land use and land conservation.